Welcome back to the Greenlight Investor for the week ending May 27th, 2016. Our goal at the Greenlight Investor is to provide a unique resource to make managing your 401k choices both a simple and easy process. We do this with a simple worksheet that uses red, green, and yellow cells to help you decide when to buy, what to buy, and when to sell. This presentation is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as personal investment advice. I'll be showing you some examples this evening, and that's exactly what they are. They're examples of how you can use this worksheet as an additional resource to help you manage choices within your 401k. Always refer to your own investment policy to make certain that the choices you make are appropriate for both your investment time horizon as well as your understanding and acceptance for taking on risk in financial markets. Let's go ahead and go right to our worksheet. Each week we'll update this worksheet. Currently, you can see the U.S. equity markets have resumed their bull market rally. The international markets are still in what I consider the bear market rally, but that's starting to get some strength, and we'll see if that can carry through for a couple more weeks. Up at the top of the worksheet, we have my information if you need to get a hold of me for any reason. We have an asset allocation questionnaire that is very helpful in helping you decide how to allocate assets based mostly on your investment time horizon and your ability to take on risk. And then we have a 401k calculator that you can use to maybe every quarter or so update the numbers that you have in your 401k, and it'll give you an estimate of how you're doing as far as saving for the longer term or what your goals are. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and review this worksheet. Our investment choices are on the left side. The headers on each of the columns include the fund number, the symbol, fund name, and a brief description of what the funds are. At the top are the core investments. As we scroll down, we have the satellite investments, which include a money market fund. It's a good place to hold money when markets are uncertain or you're seeing a change in the sentiment of the markets. We have fixed income, U.S. growth and income funds. We have the U.S. equity funds, international, and sector funds. At the top, they're generally more conservative, and as you go down towards the bottom of the worksheet, you're going to tend to be just slightly more aggressive. Center part of the worksheet, we update the performance for each of the funds on a week-over-week basis. This will show the closing price, the month-to-date return, quarter-to-date return, and the year-to-date return will be down column R. I like to keep track of this so you can see how the funds are doing in reference to the other funds in each of the categories and give you an idea how your overall selection is doing. Finally, we have what I think is the most unique part of this worksheet. It's called the current weekly trends. The way this works is down column V. Each week we're going to highlight the stronger performing funds and the weaker performing ones. You'll be able to see the strongest funds by the bright green cell down column V, and the weaker funds will be the bright red cells. And as you scroll down, you can see each category which fund has performed. This week you actually had cash as one of the worst performers, so either bonds or stocks have done better than the cash this week. And let's go one more column to the right, down column W. Each week we're going to assign a trend score numerical value to the trend. If the value is positive, you're going to see a green cell. If the value is negative, you'll see a red cell. And what we like to see is the numerical value increasing on a week-over-week basis. And we like to have at least 2 weeks in a row to make it seem as if there may be a sustainable trend starting to develop. After you have 2 weeks, there seems to be trends that may be sustainable for several weeks or several months even. This system's helpful in that it will get you in the longer-term trends. The weaker side of the system is that you can get whipsawed a little bit. If you see a very choppy market, you can see the changes from red to green and not make much progress. So it's very good for finding a trending market and then getting into the trend, and it will also help you avoid a downturn in the market if you pay attention to all the red lights. It's a lot like a traffic light system where when you see green lights, you're pretty good position to go ahead and continue with the funds that you're in. And when you see red lights, you want to pay attention to all of those. And again, if you see 2 weeks in a row, you're going to want to move out to the side of those funds, or at least be aware that there's a negative trend in place. When you see a lot of green, such as this, you're seeing some strength come back into the markets. And when you're seeing a lot of red come back in like this, you're seeing general weakness. The one thing that it does show you is the early trend may be developing, as we've seen a very negative number here, and we're seeing a much less negative, so this could be the start of a new trend. One other way to look at, or one other item to look at, are the long-term, intermediate, and short-term trends. Short-term is basically a week-over-week trend. It just gives you an early warning if there's some changes in place. Very similarly, the intermediate trend will do the same. It'll let you see if that short-term trend is starting to develop into a more sustainable trend. And finally, the long-term trend down column U is something that you really want to pay attention to. When you see bullish, it's generally okay to be in those funds, and when you see bearish, you're generally going to want to stay away until those turn either yellow or green. And the ideal setup we have is when we see at least 2 green lights to the right of column V, and it's confirmed by the long-term trend in column U, it's okay to follow those signals with a fair amount of confidence that it's a solid place to be. With all that said, let's see how we can use this information to actually make choices within your 401k. To get to the allocation portion where you can actually manage your funds, we'll click on View, Custom Views, and we'll go to My Current Allocation. When that's highlighted, click Show, and it'll change the view of this worksheet. You'll see down column H that you have My Selections, and what you do when you change your selections in your company website, you want to just record what those changes are, and you can put them in this worksheet, and it will help you manage them going forward. What you'll want to do is simply slide the slider over so you can see the columns that I generally look at are columns R and to the right. That way I can see the short, intermediate, and long-term trends. I'll get an idea of what the year-to-date returns have been for each of the funds, and then I can see to the right of column V whether or not the trend, the numerical trend scores are increasing or decreasing, and whether we have green cells showing up or not. We have a hypothetical portfolio that we use as an example of how this can be helpful in making choices. So let's review how this is done. We'll want to be 100% invested. You can change your targets in these white cells. The yellow cells will just show you what your allocations are. When you change them, you'll see a change in the yellow cells. So we're currently 5% invested in 2 of the different funds. That gives us a total allocation that we'd like of 10% into the index funds. Currently we have 1 green light. We were looking to exit, but the market showed some strength, so we're going to stay there. And we also have our long-term strength, either neutral or bullish in both of those, so no changes needed there. We have a 10% target allocation to the money market funds, but we currently have 30%, and that's mostly because we've seen a lot of weakness in the market since the beginning of this year. Our 10% allocation, again, we were looking at exiting. Since we saw strength, and a lot of strength on the week-over-week basis with the bright green cell, we'll maintain this position and continue to track it going forward. Our 10% allocation to U.S. growth and income funds, we have 5% in 2 of them. They're maintaining a bullish long-term trend. And the same situation, we were looking to see if we would see 2 red lights on back-to-back weeks, which we would use as a signal to make a change in the fund. Since we didn't see it, we'll reset and we'll continue to follow our bullish trend. Our 25% target allocation, we have 20%. We could add 5%, but again, with the changes, the weakness last week and the strength this week, I'm going to wait for the 2 weeks of confirmation before we make any changes here. But what we're seeing is our 20% allocation. We have 10% that's still bullish, and it has 1 green light. We'd like to see a second green light appear. And the situation's the same down here. We have a bullish long-term trend and a single week. We had a little bit of a shakeout here, and that's this time at work where we like to wait for 2 weeks in a row to avoid some of the whipsaws and see if we are in a sustainable trend. And going down, we have a target allocation to the international funds of 20%. Since we've seen so much red, we've been staying away from this. We are starting to see a couple of these turn bullish, so we'll keep an eye on this, and we'll use our 2-week rule, where if we see 2 columns 2 weeks in a row where we have green cells, we'll look to make an allocation there. And finally, we have a 20% allocation to the sector funds. We have 2 funds. They're both long-term bullish, and we're still seeing that we have at least the 2 cells to the right. So with that said, there's nothing that needs to be done. We'll look to see if we see strength continue to develop, or if the market continues to whipsaw back and forth, and we'll maintain this allocation. And like I said, the strength will be shown up if we see another green cell appear next week. We'll have 2 in a row, and if it bounces back to red, we'll reset and look for the next 2-week signal. That's what I've got for this week. I hope it's been helpful. Give you some ideas and some resources to manage the choices within your 401k. You can always get a hold of me by way of email or by way of phone. You can also download this worksheet directly from our website. If you'd like to get a copy emailed to you, just let me know. I'll put you on our mailing list. And I email this out usually over the weekends. I'll update the information and get it mailed out to the mailing list. So again, thanks again for taking some time out of your weekend to watch. I hope you have a great Memorial Day holiday, and look forward to seeing you again next week with the update. Thank you.